Alright, everybody, we are live for our weekly show here. It's going to be for the week of August 30th, 2020. This is officially the final stream or the final show of the summer season, and the final show before I have to turn in my third book. So, busy and crazy time all around. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, indie developer Shark. How are you doing?
I am doing chaotic.
Me too. I'm just
it's just amazing how chaotic things can be.
Yeah. I'm just mentally drained right now. I'm like last week you were saying about having trouble mustering up the energy to do anything. That's me this week.
Yeah. And I'm having mental problems too because I have a mental vampire, sucking my brain cells out apparently. Which has been interesting.
Man. My energy drain is the third book, which is due, or at least the first draft of the manuscript is due tomorrow. The words are done. Now it's just left to kind of endlessly pour over everything I've written, questioning what I've typed so far, and beginning the lovely task of image sourcing.
Begin? I thought you were already supposed to be done.
And that's what all the games I've been playing. I got about, looks like only at least 60 images. I think I got like 5 or 10 so far. But the good news is I know what the images I want to have. It's just getting them. That's going to be the final challenge.
What about getting good?
See, about getting good, the microphone finally came. I need to build up my energy to get that all hooked up.
All you gotta do is plug in the USB, and it's done. It's
the
the energy to plug in
the
USB.
I'm hoping that this week will finally free me up so I can start focusing on some other things.
Have you looked at how long that cord is yet?
No.
It's like a 30-foot long USB cord.
Oh, jeez.
That's how you know it's a studio mic.
Yeah, but here's the thing though. I'm only 3 feet away from my computer.
Yeah, so same here. My mic is actually right beside my computer, so but one day if I can, get my own place and everything, I'm going to set up a closet as a sound booth or something, and treat it, put everything I need to put in there and be able to take my mic in there and get some truly professional sound.
And I guess the next step for me is to start looking to the padding on all the walls.
Yeah, you can do that selectively. I mean, the main place you're going to get the most benefit from it is the direction that you are speaking in when you're talking into your mic.
Alright, so I'll be in front of me then.
Yeah, in front of wherever you're talking. Because basically, the first thing to get hit is that when you broadcast your sound wave forward, it's going to hit the wall and then bounce back. And so if you can kill a lot of it from hitting the wall, then you just killed majority of the sound, bad sound.
Okay.
Although I don't have that, so keep in mind that this is without that, so it'll sound even better than this.
All right.
This is just the mic plugged in. That's pretty much it.
Alright, so we got a lot to talk about today, and hopefully we'll get some people. It looks very quiet today.
It does look very, very quiet.
And I guess maybe everyone else is just mentally drained as well.
Yeah, do we have a lot of mental vampires going around about now?
And we did have that amazing round table earlier this week.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. And that is actually, links into the topic we have today.
And that is going to be talking about the challenges of translating tabletop design to video games and vice versa. Because it is very challenging to, again, kind of put your thoughts to code or to paper, and then understanding how they will relate to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see what's happening in the news. And more trouble from Ubisoft this week. They announced another Tom Clancy game that's drawing their whole idea of we're not political, but we're talking politically about games.
Yeah. They're anti-political, political game.
Yeah. Is that safely extreme or just dangerous?
I think that's extremely extreme.
Mm-hmm. And Call of Duty is doing something apparently with Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. And we have Epic in the news yet again because their onslaught with Apple and Google's making more headlines and everything. How how Apple actually does and Google actually does have something to worry about, because it's not just Epic now, because like Microsoft has joined Epic in the fight. And not only that, but like a lot of this stuff links to that government thing. I forget what they called it. But basically the government had called Google and Apple and several other people in, to, talk about potential monopolies, not long before the suit. And everything, and I'm pretty sure that Tim over there at Epic definitely seen that, and he's like, okay, here's my striking point right here. And then they just started planning. Actually, you know what? There was actually a lawsuit also, or not a lawsuit, but something where Epic had made a deal with, I think it was OnePlus, to get an Epic Game Store app on Android, I think it was, but on just those phones, the OnePlus or something, as a default app kind of thing. And then Google didn't like that, and they forced they pressured OnePlus to pull it. That's not a monopoly or anything, is it? Or not a antitrust, rather.
Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting now that Microsoft has joined things, and of course, Apple has officially pulled Epic's account developer rights for the platform. Yeah. So they're not going scorched earth, right?
Well, they couldn't. They tried to pull all of the Unreal Engine games and such. But the judge actually made a ruling that they could not do that. So, and that, I believe that includes the other games from Epic Games. I think the only one that they didn't have to put back was Fortnite. So I think Fortnite is the only game that's affected by this at the moment. I believe. I'm not 100%, but yeah.
And we're still nowhere near the end of this and what it means for Epic and Google and of course Apple now.
Yeah.
And Microsoft.
Yeah.
Who else will join?
I'm not even getting the place for a second. I'm just getting it loads straight to a gray screen with an error on it.
Well, that's just great.
You want to stop the stream and restart it?
Wait, I think it's back?
Oh, there it is. Yay, technical problems. How many minutes of technical problems was that? Like
3, 4?
4?
Oh wait, now it's flickering again. Very weird. I think when we get to our main topic, I'm going to hit the recording button just to be on the safe side.
Alright.
Well, let's get to the weird game segment now then and see what happens, because I'm not sure what is going on there. Alright, give me 1 second. So as before, we've been picking our games before the show to kind of streamline the process.
Mm-hmm.
And we got some very weird and interesting games this week.
Yep, and they're meme games.
And Shark, if you could, just if you notice how it starts to go out again, let me know.
Alright.
Alright, so this first one for me is Windbound. And looks to be kind of an open action adventure survival game? Your boat is your key companion. I don't see any sharks though.
I mean, if they did, they'd steal the limelight. The game would all be about sharks.
Looks promising. My only concern is I see nothing about, the crafting elements or even how you build your boat.
I don't know if this is crafting.
Well, it says you craft tools and weapons, but it could just be like a very basic, craft +3 pickaxe. Now you can craft +4 and so on.
Yeah, it might be a more of an upgrade system than the crafting.
Yeah. So moving from a game that looks like it could be really good, we turn to this one, Kitty Rainbow. It's a plate rainbow former. The rainbows are your platforms, and your weapons, and your shields. It's all rainbows.
Is this what they meant when you upgrade your computer by Rainbow Puke?
I guess so. Mr. Rush is your magical feline friend. Touching his and the dialogue here makes me think that English was not the first language.
Or second.
Mm-hmm. But don't you love these screenshots?
Oh yeah.
Also,
all the Rainbow Puke.
I'm fairly sure that this may be plagiarizing not Bubble Bobble, but the other game, like the spin-off where you shoot like the rainbows and then you jump on them and they kill the enemies.
I don't know the one you're talking about.
Yeah. Maybe if chat comes back, they'll be able to answer it.
Will you have a chat?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Alright. So this is one that I picked just because of the... I'm not sure how to describe it either. This is an insanely good idea or an insanely bad one. So this is the mechanical world of Dr. Gearbox. And from this description, this is a Pokemon 3D platformer meets STEM training tool.
I'm guessing bad because if you look at I think it's about the 6th screenshot where you have the little character with horns on it.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at that one and compare the character to the background, one of these things do not.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. This looks like very basic Unreal to me.
Looks like it's mostly assets.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing it's all asset backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
With, custom characters.
And apparently, combat is turn-based, but it has a timed battle trivia minigame every time the player character casts a spell. So I'm sure that won't break up pacing at all.
No. And I'm sure that the battle trivia will be asking you legitimate questions and not stupid ones that have nothing to do with the game.
Each house will related. So there's 40 STEM lessons in this game.
Because, why not have, knowledge about celebrities in a game about a mechanical word and a gearbox. Who won the last MTV Video Music Award in 2019?
I mean, it sounds like they're aiming this as kind of an edutainment. But I just don't know if what is here... It sounds like it's being shoehorned into me. I hate to say that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of shoehorns. The art's a shoehorn. The assets are a shoehorn.
Just get the kids to play Space Captain. That will do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is one that both Shark and I picked. And this is Code Arcturus. And it's a 16-bit kind of run-and-gun arcade game. The graphics look decent, wouldn't you say?
I think they look better than decent.
Let's see.
They're not amazing, but I think they're good. They're just not great.
There's apparently a Nerf mode. 12 levels, can be beat in a single sitting.
If I were to give them one of your ratings, I'd give it a not bad. Just one not bad on graphics.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some surprisingly good, like, retro Maya games, like that, that one where I play, like, it's like the caveman, like, it looks like Alien World. Yeah, whose name just completely escapes me right now.
The game completely escapes me.
So this is one that I picked because of the description of this game, and again, kind of the idea of why you and this is one of the things I was talking to Shark about before the show, that we need to have a talk about why you need to play games as a developer. So
wait, you can play games as a developer?
Or as a gamer. Gamers don't play games, right?
No, gamers never play games.
So, the game says right here, the game sheds a traditional UI design, breaking the concept that the UI can only be used as a fixed layer and blends it with combat. So, while this developer sounds like they're being very clever and they just stumbled upon the secret of design, they just describe a diegetic UI.
Yeah.
I mean, that is literally what a diegetic UI is. It is a UI that's built within the game space itself.
Yep, which diegetic UI can ruin a game if you're not careful with it.
Yeah. It will be like saying, I just invented a new genre where you jump on moving objects. Call it a jump 'em up. Well, you say somebody's going to steal that from us.
The plate former.
So, part of my problem is that I'm not sure what is happening in these screenshots.
Things and stuff.
Apparently, there's puzzle solving. Ooh, a maze of information. That's just what I want to do.
I tell you the reason why you don't know what's going on with these in a lot of these shots is because the diegetic UI was not done right.
Yeah. And again, this is the danger when you do things very esoteric or unique, that if you do something that nobody's ever seen before and you don't explain it to them, how are they going to know what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, diegetics are completely unique. This guy invented them. Just now, with this game. They never had a name or existed before this game.
I'm going to put in a key first because I want to kind of see...
The train wreck?
Yeah, exactly. I was about to use the word train wreck, too. Alright,
you want to watch the train wreck burn.
So this... Remember how we were saying how it didn't like people were copying Factorio or doing anything around those lines? This sounds very Factorio-like, but in a super smaller scope. Minds of Volnatis?
Volantis?
Could be. Maybe like Atlantis but with volcanoes?
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for success.
So this, to me, this sounds like a game that could be up my alley, because I've been looking for somebody to do something similar to Steam World Dig, but make it procedural and maybe a little roguelike-ish. I don't know if this game gets to that point, but it's always nice. Again, I like it when a game surprises me. At least good surprise, not bad surprise.
Well, I think you like the bad surprises even more.
Well, that's the masochism. Hey, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, the game has potential, but I don't see any potential for it being successful with the graphics.
Very basic looking art. And
well, the issue with the art is it's mismatching. If you look at the rocks and everything, you can see like solid patches of color. But if you look at the dirt and the sand and all that stuff, and you see that just every pixel is different, kind of thing. But then you look at the building and it's got solid patches of colors, and the trees have solid patches of colors, and the background has solid patches of colors.
Yeah,
you know, it's very much less than the sum of its parts because of the mismatch.
And my gut is telling me that there's going to be very little animation in terms of how things move around, or if anything.
There'll be a little bit. I mean, you can see the particle smokes from the factory.
Yeah.
And the fire probably animates on the top. The vehicles probably have a 2-frame animation cycle.
Yeah. I never
and
played.
That's probably about it. There might be particle effects whenever you destroy a piece of dirt or sand kind of thing.
Yeah. Never play the Pandemic board game. I don't play a lot of tabletop games unless they come to the PC or they're made for that, which is part of our discussion in a few minutes. Let's see. So this one I picked because it sounds fascinating. I just don't know. Like, I've kind of picked this just on the name itself, but it looks like there could be potential here. The Girl of Glass, A Summer Bird's Tale, The Journey Begins. Again, more words makes your title better, right?
Oh, absolutely. You need all the words. They may not care how many words are actually in your game, but they care about how many words that are in your title.
I really like the aesthetic of this game. It makes me wonder who this publisher is.
I personally do not like the aesthetics, but I can see how somebody would.
Has a very storybook look to me.
They look very lived in, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now my concern is that is it an adventure game, but it also has puzzle-like turn-based combat. And I'm not sure how that works in terms of a design.
Yeah.
That's a big bear right there. And you gotta be really careful when you're combining two very distinctive genres. Does an adventure gamer want to play an RPG? Does an RPG fan want to play an adventure game?
I know I don't. And I'm an RPG fan.
Yeah. There's a game that I was thinking about that now escapes me, that also try to do multiple things at once.
Matthew, it's not that more words help you with Google Play apps. More tags helps you with Google Play apps. Putting false tags in there is bad.
Oh, I was reminding of that game Chris Tale that we played during the Summer Festival that had a very puzzle-like combat, and I just did not get it looked very good, but again it raises that problem of, does puzzle-like combat work for one battle, or is this just going to bog the entire game down for whatever how many hours it's going to be? if you saw footage of the new Paper Mario game, they completely, gutted the combat system. It's now this very weird, like, rotating dials, and you gotta set up positions for Mario.
Yeah, I've seen that.
On one hand, it's innovative, but on the other hand, is it actually engaging to play?
I'm guessing yes, but I'm also guessing that they should have probably made this a spin-off because of our previous discussion.
And I've seen
that might be too drastic of a change to be a mainline entry.
So it's a spin-off to a spin-off, then?
Well, it's not, but it probably should be.
Yeah. And like, to me, I was watching, and I've heard people say that they like the game, but they just want to remove the combat at all from it.
Actually, it's a spin-off to a spin-off to a spin-off. Because Mario RPG was the original spin-off. And then you go off of that to Paper Mario. And then you go off of that to this one.
Yeah. I'm going to put a key request in for that. Again, just to see what happens. So now we turn to the game that I picked this one for the red flags. So this is There Was a Dream. So it is a farming, crafting, combat, puzzle elements, and sandbox exploration game from what appears to be an indie developer.
Is it also a visual novel?
Could be. Let's see. Vast inventory. Oh, we get a horse.
Of course.
Wait. Take control of your cat in every moment? Shouldn't that be any moment? Wait, so we just always a cat?
It's every moment.
Okay.
See, every moment you control the cat.
Hey, Mojo. Nice.
It's like the it's like the mechanic in Mario, the Cat Mario one, where you had like 8 Marios running around at the same time. And one Mario, they would all go in the same direction, but they would, that you push, but they all control, was at different points in the puzzle, and you'll have to do that while controlling the cat and the girl.
Nice.
And the horse, you could. So, like, the horse, your character's riding the horse, and so is the cat, but the horse is going this direction, and, like, the girl's, over to the left, and the cat, up in the air, and the cat's over to the right, up in the air, kind of thing. And then the cat gets stuck on a tree and everything, and then, it gets ended up left behind.
And the chat's on about there's a gritty Powerpuff Girls reboot that is raising some red flags in my head right now. So in this game, you can take part in crafting, fishing, hunting, farming, drive cars, sail with boats, ride and train your horse. So you train your horse while riding it, and more.
You have to.
There you go. With thousands. Oh, good. There's going to be thousands of combination of clothing. So they're going to have an extensive art budget as well. Ooh, yeah. Day and night with climate events. And is this from a first-time developer, I wonder? I don't know. Like, again, haven't we said that your first project should be small?
Yeah.
Because this does not look like a small project. And look, wait, I think Shark was right. It looks like the cat is riding the horse. There you go. But can the cat get his own miniature horse that he can ride?
No, the cat rides a donkey.
Ah. And here's like the other thing. Is this single player or is this an MMO?
It's a single MMO.
A SMO?
Yes, SMO.
Again, it's one of those ideas that, if it works, could be an amazing, groundbreaking game, but the chance of that happening is very low.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is going to be one of those examples of as wide as the ocean, as deep as a puddle.
Mm-hmm.
Or as deep as a couple of raindrops. So you're in a puddle.
There's farming. I wonder if there's a musical minigame as well.
It probably is. You can break out into song.
Alright, and now we come to Shark's Picks. And what is this game? Cubic Currency. Get dice. Oh, wait, is this Cyberpunk or Dice Punk?
I think it's Cyber Dice Punk.
Nice.
It reminds me a lot of like Papers, Please kind of thing, but with like other stuff in it. It looks like a unique game. I'm guessing that Papers, Please is one of their inspirations, one of many, probably, because this is really kind of a different kind of game. And I don't even completely know what's going on in it, but like it looks really quite unique, and the aesthetics are there.
Yeah.
It's not the best aesthetics, but the aesthetics are there.
According to the description, this was done originally as a Game Jam game, the Ludum Dare Challenge. So it's kind of bringing back memories of course, Super Hot and Forager. That the idea was really well received, and then they decided to take it further.
Well, I mean, a lot of games started as game jams because, you know, I mean, even our last game, The Word of the Day, Chromasia, started off as a game jam.
Right.
And, you know, I you know, a lot of developers, a lot of professional developers are like, you know, they're looking for something to you know, to do specifically. And, you know, they're like, let's just go into a game jam and see what we can come up with. You know, and if we like it, we can continue on it. If we don't, we don't, kind of thing. And, you know, just fast prototyping. And other people are like, you know, I know with myself, is like, we already knew what we wanted to do. We wanted to work on Project Toaster. And it's like, you know, I think a good way to, you know, kickstart that off is do a game jam and just start on it that way, so we have something playable like really quickly, and then we can, you know, start iterating after that.
Yep. All right, I put in a key request for that one. So this next game, I wonder why Shark chose it. Let's see. This is Food Chain, where you control an animal trying to survive.
That's because, you know, the best character in that game is a shark.
Will the shark have to be nerfed?
Well, I mean, they couldn't nerf the shark.
I like this description. Animals not invented. They didn't make any new animals. So where's my crocopus? Or deer tiger? Tiger. There we go.
I think you mean your liger. Your lion tigers.
Okay. I look at the simulation. Oh wait, new animals will be actively added. Wait, I don't think you play as a shark. I think you play as land animals looking for water.
Well, the shark is the most OP one.
What's
in there?
What the hell is going on in this image? That is haunting right there.
Yeah.
Alright, now this one we could put like some nature documentary music too.
You should request a key for it, and we'll put some nature documentary music to it. And, you know, we'll do commentary over it, and we'll release like a couple videos out on your channel like that.
I just love this image right here. It's the Animal War. I need to play more Impossible Creatures.
That may be what we call it. We call it the Animal War.
And it's a sports game. What is going on in this one? Is that like Crocodile like jumping? Or is he flying right now? And then we have this.
That may be underwater. I think that might be underwater, and he's swimming. but the wolves are walking on the bottom or
I don't know.
something.
And here we have looks like a moose just looking poetically into the sky.
I mean, you have to have the poetic shot of the moose looking up.
Yeah, this may be like the water effects are very suspect here.
Mm-hmm. Look at the rhino in the water.
Yeah, there are a lot of screenshots in this game.
It screenshot the game.
Oh, what is that bear doing to that hippo in the background? This one. We're gonna get some D mods, aren't we?
Probably.
Oh my goodness! Oh, the horror! Like this looks like one of like those like they have like those Civil War documentaries, and they're like showing like footages of the conflict right here.
Yeah.
What the hell? And apparently this deer thinks he's like Kratos and he's doing a finisher kill. This is just the whole. This should just be the rest of the stream, just us going through these screenshots.
he's deer toast.
And this elephant looks like he's like dancing right now. I'm pretty sure their jaws don't open up that wide. Oh my, look at that. There's a winning screenshot.
Oh yeah.
Alright. And we're out screenshots, unfortunately.
Rip screenshots.
Should I put in a key for that?
Absolutely.
Alright. And then Shark picked Gotta Date Them All. So, what attracted you to this one?
Well, you got to date them all. I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, you know, Pokemon, or is it
Wait, date them all, but there's only 6 characters. That seems like false advertising.
Well, they'll add in more characters as it goes on.
Where's Dragon?
He's missing out.
They should have summoned him.
Yeah, he should have.
And then Shark picked Cyber Doge 2077 Meme Runner.
Yeah, and this is a great one because, I mean,
And there's Putin.
who doesn't want to be a cyber doge?
How about Putin? Cyber Putin. Oh, my.
He's not so much of a meme runner. He's more of a meme killer.
Oh, man. These are some amazing graphics right here.
Oh, yeah. Top of the line.
And then, lastly, we have Influxus, which I'm pretty sure the Subnautica developers may sue them for, copyright infringement with some of these screenshots.
There's nothing that's copyrighted here, but I mean, it is basically a clone.
Yeah, like
A cheap man's Subnautica.
this looks very much like one of the areas in the game.
Yeah.
Now the UI is different; it's far more basic. But
everything's more basic.
yeah, I mean, look at. I like the character model right here. That's not a conflicting art, right?
No. Well, that goes right together. It meshes like perfectly.
So again, this goes with that topic we keep having. Why should I play your version of Subnautica when Subnautica is still out?
Yeah. I mean, they could just release it for like $5 cheaper, right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes it worthwhile, no.
Mm-hmm.
No. You need to make either something different or better.
Does this look different or better to you?
No, it looks the same and worse.
There you go. And that is not safely extreme.
Nope.
And again, it's very tough to convince somebody that your game is better when you are just copying somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
XCOM Terror of the Deep. Yep.
I mean, you can make a entry to the genre, but don't try to make it the same exact game in the same exact genre. Make it a different kind of game in the same genre.
Yep.
It's not the genre that gets you. It's making everything basically the exact same. Or worse.
Yeah. But I think we can all agree we need at least 5 clones of Food Chain, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can never get enough Food Chain.
Alright, but with that, let's get to our main topic for our show, and that's going to be talking about the challenges of translating tabletop design to video games and vice versa. And on our roundtable discussion, we were talking about teaching game design to people. And one of the topics that came up, of course, is paper prototyping, even just designing tabletop games. Because the tabletop allows you to start to think about things from a design standpoint without, again, needing obvious coding and art skills to go with it. And is a great way, as we've said, one of the challenges of game design is getting these thoughts out of your head. Because in your head, your game works, it's bug-free, and can be done in a day, right?
Yeah. It can be done in 10 minutes if you skip lunch.
But one of the challenges of trying to do all this is being able to think about your game in actual terms. And I think let's start with the tabletop side, and then we'll talk about translating that to the video game. Or tabletop to video game, and then video game to tabletop. Let's go with that. But when it comes to designing a tabletop game, one of the things that you have to consider is the fact that you don't have a computer that's going to do all the work for the player. And this was one of the primary aspects of early CRPGs, or just early RPGs in general, that the game is the dungeon master. You don't need to sit there and calculate, okay, how much damage am I doing? The game does that all for you. So, when you are trying to build a tabletop experience, and you really have to think about onboarding and approachability. Because you don't want a tabletop game that takes 4 hours of prep work just to get started.
Well, you may. But, that's a different topic entirely.
Yeah.
But, so when I started to get into games and everything, game development and whatnot, I started in 2 places kind of simultaneously. Like, I started as a writer, writing on what was originally going to be a fan game that evolved into my dream game. And around the same time, I was playing a lot of tabletop games. And, that I had gotten really excited because, like, somebody told me that they had a Dragon Ball Z RPG, and I was like, I'm down, let's play it. And then we played it, and it was a complete horrible letdown. And I had GM'd several games at that point. I was no expert or anything, but I had GM'd several games and, had experience with, I don't know, probably about 10 or 15 different, tabletops RPG systems. So I was like, I see what they were trying to go at. I seen that intention, what they were trying to go with, because what they had is a D6 system where, like, as you leveled up and put EXP in there, you would just get more and more D6s. So you would have infinite scaling power kind of thing. And I was like, yes, that is very DBZ like, but everything else does not really fit or make do or anything, and it's just it boils down to 5 billion dice and getting lucky or not getting lucky, and that was the entire gameplay loop. And it's like, oh, there's so many issues here, and so I went and started working on my own tabletop version of that, and kind of got stuck at some point, and I stopped, and then I worked on another tabletop game which I finished, and it was completely horrible. And then I worked on another and another and another, and each one got progressively better. I kept on upping my game design skills as we went on, and eventually, and little by little, I came back to the Dragon Ball Z one I was working on and kept on working on it bit by bit until eventually I had the Dragon Ball Z one done. We played it, and it was really fun. And we kept on playing it. We played it for I think like 6 months or so, and I had to keep on adding more content because. and tweaking and balancing and whatnot as we went through, because it wasn't the best balanced and everything, and wasn't needed testing, and that's what we're doing. And so I have and that game is probably good enough to publish. I would say that even today, it was certainly a lot better than your officially licensed Dragon Ball Z game. That's for dang sure. I mean, nothing. I don't think I ever played an RP that bad. Besides the ones I made that were complete flops, I never played a published game that bad. But the aspects of making a tabletop game is you have to make it playable within the rule set. You have to teach a player how to play. And you have to give them every bit of knowledge they need to play to, not only to actually play, but to actually GM it. And you have to think all these things through and give them all this information, give them details on things, don't just give them stats and whatnot.
And rule conflicts as well. You have to give them information about what happens if X interacts with Y, and so on.
And you need to, you have to spell everything out. And if you're trying to get into game design, this is, I would argue, the best way to start. I would not argue to, just make a game. Although, that is also a potential. That would be the second best. But the thing is with that, you have to get a programmer, you have to put money on the line, and, you're trying to learn, and you probably don't want to put a bunch of money on the line while you're trying to learn. And if you're going to learn programming too or whatever, then you're learning multiple things at once, which is probably going to cause you to learn neither of the things, or at least nowhere near as good on either of the things. You probably need to try to focus on learning one thing at a time. And this is a great way to learn game design. Now, mind you that, game designers are not really wanted in the field. So, the real reason to learn game design is if you're already a part of a team, perhaps leading the team. Because, I mean, the game designer has is in such a position that they're not necessarily the leader, but they are a leader, if not the leader kind of thing, because a game designer has to communicate with all the rest of the team and convey all these mechanics and everything to them in a proper manner. They have to organize, they have to take feedback and everything else, and a leader does all the same things. So, like, if you're going to lead your own game development team, learning game design is important, kind of thing. And, but that doesn't mean there can only be one game designer. You can have multiple game designers. It doesn't mean that as a leader of a team, you have to be a game designer. But I think if you were a leader of a team, you would want at least some knowledge in game design. And, this is a great way to get it, by making a tabletop game. And the great thing about that is when you get done, go play it. Yep. You have a complete game. If you have to go rob a Monopoly set of its dice and, dog and chew, or whatever, go rob a Sorry game for its little pawns, whatever, go rob whatever tabletop game you need for your game pieces and whatnot. And you rob multiple of them and, mix, get the pieces that you need for your particular game, kind of thing. And heck, if none of that works, make a paper version of it, or better yet, take some cardboard, like cardboard box that you get from the grocery store, and I don't mean like your car-rated cardboard. I mean like your stuff that, like, granola bars come in, or your cereal boxes or whatever. Take that, cut it out, draw on top of there, make some characters, paint them, make them look pretty and everything, fold them up and everything, and you got you some custom characters, kind of thing.
Yep. Heck,
if you got a 3D printer, make you some 3D models, or get some off the internet and print you out some characters. Whatever it is, you can make it and play it. Whatever your method is, there is always a way for you to play it. And that's that's a great thing. If it's card based, like if you make a game that's card based, like Munchkin kind of thing, you can just take a bunch of pieces of paper and write them on there. If you want to take it to the next step, what you could do is take some actual cards, like some solitaire cards that you don't care about, and then write on them. Or you could take on them and take it to the next level, put a piece of paper over it, and then draw on the paper, kind of thing, and make sure that they're really good and taped on there. Heck, you could even throw a back on there, just print out a ton of those, and now you have a fully functioning card game, kind of thing.
It is
not only that, but you can take this all and go to a website and have a professional printout of these onto professional cards for probably, like, depending on how many cards you've got, but anywhere from like $10 to $15, depending on what you want. But like if you're running like a thing of regular about a deck the size of regular playing cards, you can get a quantity of one for probably $10-15 kind of thing. Yeah. Maybe even cheaper than that. And that's not feasible for selling it, but for selling it, you can order probably a few thousand and get it for like $3 a piece, kind of thing. But if this is for testing, kind of thing. Like there's many different steps here that are really cheap to free, kind of thing. And depending on how much polish you want in this initial kind of thing, and I probably wouldn't go with the professional set right away. I would probably do other stuff first. Mm-hmm. But there's many things that you can do there, and test out your design. The real thing here is learning design. Play it, and when you play it, you can find the issues.
Yeah,
and get to the point where you can just give this to people, and you walk out of the room, don't say anything to them besides play the game, and let them figure it all out on their own. See, make sure they get all the rules and everything, make sure everything goes right, kind of thing, without saying anything to them. And if anything goes wrong, go fix it,
Mm-hmm.
write in that they had issues, with this one rule, and you put a clarification on that one rule, kind of thing.
And this is what when I spoke with Sandy Peterson, who again he's done both tabletop and video games, and he greatly prefers tabletop design as being able to get this in somebody's hands. And ultimately, that is one of the biggest advantages of making a tabletop game, as Shark just said, that you don't need to do anywhere near the amount of work or spend anywhere near the amount of money to be able to get a paper prototype or a basic tabletop game in front of people and see if this idea has merit. And like Shark was saying, that you can the ultimate goal is to build your tabletop game so that you don't need to be in the room to have somebody play them. That is, again, a very big part about onboarding and UI and UX design. That you are not going to be there to walk somebody through how to play your game. And we see this from a lot of different areas of the game industry of people who fail that lesson. That the only way you're learning this game is through a guide and a 40-minute tutorial that the developer has to write. That's not how you get somebody interested in a title.
Or a YouTuber.
And when we talk about tabletop design along these lines, that you're in one way you are restricted in what you can make. Again, you're dealing with paper and physical, the physical dimensions. But just like with the game industry, that is still a very wide space for you to put your own spin on that design.
Actually, the limits are not all that hard on tabletop. Actually, I think a lot of the limitations on tabletop are less than the ones in game development, unless you have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because what you can do in a tabletop game, you can do and get it professional kind of thing. And what it would, what you could do there for I don't know, $200 kind of thing. The professional quality and the mechanics and everything is something. I mean, you can't even get out of a game jam technically.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, a game jam, if you were to pay people to participate with you, kind of thing, saying it's not a game jam, but a game jam game kind of thing, but done outside of a game jam kind of thing, you're going to be paying a programmer 16 hours a day for 3 days, assuming it's a 3-day game jam. And, that's what? How many hours is that? 16 times 3, that's 48 hours. And if they're charging $20 an hour, that is $960. And let me tell you, that game jam game is going to be absolute crap compared to this game. Then you got the artist, that you're also going to have to pay.
And don't forget coming up with an actual aesthetic for your game as well. Yep. And again, one of the beauties.
Music.
Yep. And like we said, one of the best things about tabletop design is that it really allows you to just focus on the mechanics and design of whatever your idea is. Like we said, you don't have to worry about art, you don't have to worry about aesthetics, music, programming. It is very much, is this idea really good? If it is,
if you're going to publish it, you have to worry about the art.
But at least when you're starting out, you're able to just make something that is playable. And for a lot of people, that is the hardest gate to get past when it comes to game design. Being able to just say, okay, is this idea good or not? And well, I guess here's a question. From what I've been looking at, just kind of my thoughts, I don't think every possible design could be paper prototype without just massively changing it. Would you say that, or do you think it is possible to take anything and make it into a tabletop?
I mean, you could take anything and make it into a tabletop, but would it be representative? Probably not.
Yeah.
because like anything like a Dark Souls game, like anything tabletop is going to be turn-based, so I mean you can make a turn-based version of Dark Souls, but it's not going to feel exactly like Dark Souls because it's turn-based kind of thing. Maybe it's where you have you draw a bunch of cards kind of thing, and you have attack, parry, dodge, roll, this kind of thing in your hands, and the NPC draws cards, and he has equivalent cards and everything, and you have attack stats, defense stats. So your opponent has attack stats and defense stats, and you can take turns, swinging and countering and whatnot. And maybe you got a power that anytime that you get a hit, you draw an extra card kind of thing, or maybe you just draw a card every turn. Every time you play a card, you draw a card. And maybe you have some kind of power that if you hit twice in a row, you do 2 times damage in that second hit. Kind of thing. There is so many things you could do with that, and so much really cool stuff that you could do with that, but it wouldn't feel like a Dark Souls game completely. I mean, it would have the essence of it, because I think you can envision that from what I was saying, that it would have a lot of parallels, and it would get the overall vibe over, but it wouldn't be mechanically. It would feel the same, but it wouldn't feel the same as of the timing kind of thing, because you would have to basically, the equivalent to it would be like slowing it down in your brain, slowing down the Dark Souls combat, and every card is actually a stream might be having issues.
I just saw a pop up from OBS. Let's see. Alright, I think we're back. That was weird.
Alright.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties again. But like, you can translate anything. And you can translate it pretty well, but the action stuff is going to be farther away.
It has to be abstracted. Again, you can't exactly punch the person when you're playing a tabletop game, or you could, but it'll be a very quick game there. And
that would be the Fight Club game.
There we go. Perfect. And one of the advantages of being able to translate a video game to tabletop, or just thinking about tabletop design in general, again, is that it forces you to rely on small numbers. It forces you, again, to look at onboarding and accessibility, because you can't design an overly complicated game. And this is something that St. Pearson talked about when we had him on for several of the live shows, that with each one of his games, they are very much designed, or try to be designed, around as short of an onboarding process as needed, and then kind of let the game's depth grow from there. And
you can have large numbers. You can have insanely large numbers, but they need to be insanely large, simple numbers. And they all need to be insanely, well, not all, but all of the numbers that interact directly with that need to be insanely simple. Like if you look at the Dragon Ball Z card game, what they have is they have on their hero cards, they have stats, which depending on the character, anywhere between like 8 to 14 stats on there, and each one of these stats basically represents 1 HP. Kind of thing. And because you just move from one down to the other as you take damage kind of thing, you lose power kind of thing. But each one of these stages, say 5 million, 4.8 million, 3 million, 2.8, that kind of thing. And so you can use big numbers and everything, but you have to be you have to use them in certain ways kind of thing to get them across. So it's not saying that you can't use big numbers, but anything that a player is going to have to calculate, it either needs to be a small number or it needs to be the equivalent of a small number. And what I mean by the equivalent of a small number is if all of your numbers end in 6 zeros, then in all the and then there's only 2 digits in butt of that, then that means it's basically 6. It's a 2-digit math problem.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 48 million, and you've got 45 million, so you take 3 million damage. It's still very, very simple because it's still it's simplified to the point of even where you're not worrying about anything but millions, and now you're just worried about 2-digit numbers of millions kind of thing. And of course, you probably don't want to start off here, but you could get there kind of thing. And but simplification is very, very key, because not everybody can do math very well, so you need to keep it where very simple, where pretty much anybody can figure it out in their heads, and the ones that can't figure it out in their heads can figure it out in a heartbeat on a calculator. Because you've got to, because if you don't do that, then people that suck at math, or people who are not great at math, are going to hate your game.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes. Mm-hmm. And again, this is all about onboarding and the approachability of a title. And you can have depth, as Shark said, but at the end of the day, somebody will still need to be able to figure out your game without you being in the room guiding them. And as we said earlier, then that person will then have to explain it to their friends and the people playing it, whenever they come over.
Mm-hmm. And you also need to be sure that another reason why you want to keep your numbers simple is because you need things to be quick, because you don't want to drag out the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to give them even if they could reasonably figure out trigonometry kind of thing. Even if they have that skill kind of thing, you still don't want them doing it, because you don't want them to take 20 minutes to figure out how much damage this character's taking, because that's just going to really drag down the gameplay and slow things down and cause a negative experience, because they're not playing the game, they're playing math.
Yeah. And math, the game, is not what you want your tabletop experience to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at kind of this understanding of tabletop design, a lot of this, as we've said, can definitely draw parallels to video game design. Because again, at the end of the day, a good video game is something that it's very approachable, it's something that is not overly complicated, and it's something that you shouldn't have to be in the room for somebody to understand what your game is.
Yeah, and I tell you this, almost every turn-based game kind of thing, you can sit there and make a paper version of it.
Oh yeah.
You could take the Word of the Day Chromasia, you could take Project Triad, make a paper version of it, and it will play either 99% or 100% like the actual finished game. Mm-hmm. So you could paper prototype that and play it out, and you can balance your game that way, and before you ever touch a line of code kind of thing. And it might be too complicated to play as a tabletop game, because you're making all these arbitrary numbers and additions and everything that may even go into decimal points.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't matter when you get into programming. Yeah. Where but it so you don't have to have that be perfectly balanced and everything easy for people to do in their head if you're going to turn into a video game, because a video game is a calculator.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
So, like, everything in the game is calculating off your stats, and even the simplest of games that have like no stats that you can see, you just like Mario, there's still stats in Mario.
Mm-hmm.
Mario 1, there is still stats in there because the stats is the Goomba has 1 HP. Mario has 1 HP if he's normal. If he's small, he's got 2 HP. If he's big, he's got 3 HP. If he's got a flower kind of thing. And if you stomp on the Goomba, then you reduce its HP by 1.
Yep.
And if a Goomba hits you from the side, it will reduce your HP by 1 and change your states.
Yep.
From possibly to death if you were already small.
Mm-hmm. And to a Janšvik's point or a question, what we're talking about is translating tabletop games into software or software into tabletop games. So it's an idea. Oh, go ahead.
It's a whole relationship between the two and how they apply to each other and apply separately and mesh.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, time-wise, we got about maybe like another 30-40 minutes. So let's see, let's kind of wrap up our thoughts on this, and we'll talk a little bit more about taking the tabletop on, excuse me, taking the tabletop to the video game side of things. But when we look at kind of tabletop design, as Shark said, strategy games, RPGs, anything that's built heavily on abstraction, work really well in a tabletop setting. Because it is all about the numbers and the systems at play. And I mean, it's also one of the reasons why we've seen many RPGs and strategy games get tabletop versions made or get Kickstarters for them. There was, I know they did a Darkest Dungeon tabletop game. I'm pretty sure they did XCOM as well.
Yeah, it would make sense. I haven't seen those, but it would make perfect sense.
Now, what's very interesting is we saw the Binding of Isaac for Souls, which is taking the Binding of Isaac design and translating that into a tabletop experience. And when I interviewed Edmund about this, I remember him saying that when he first thought about the idea, it just sounded like completely nonsensical. How do I take an action roguelike and turn it into a tabletop game? And as he started to work through it, he found that he fell in love with that idea.
Yeah, I could imagine that could be pretty dang fun.
And like we said, just like with video games, there are always limitations to what you're able to do in any medium. But you can get very creative with your ideas. As Shark was describing the Mario idea of translating a platformer into a tabletop game. I'm sure that could be done in a very engaging way that could lead to something completely original.
Mm-hmm.
The game that Thorne showed me that was about running a train company and having almost a randomized play each time based on what special cards you would draw for that particular play. And again, for somebody like me who...
Or a Dark Souls game.
Yep. For somebody like me who didn't grow up playing tabletop games, and if you're watching this as well, that the market is huge. It is not, just 18 different flavors of Monopoly or Sorry. There are some amazing and very content-rich tabletop experiences out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's where Magic the Gathering started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's a tiny game. Nobody's ever heard of that one.
Oh. And again, nobody's ever played, those Kickstarter games that got $5 to $10 million worth of Kickstarter funding for a tabletop game.
Is that because they welched on the backers, or is that because
they, did amazingly well? And there is definitely a lot of potential in the tabletop space. I mean, it has been proven at this point that you can make very viable tabletop games and stuff that, again, can do something that it's either can be translated into a video game or it can just stand on its own.
Yeah. And the thing is that when you're comparing, the video game industry to the, like board game tabletop industry, it's far, far easier to succeed in the board game tabletop industry.
I mean, look at the Kickstarters. I mean, while the video game Kickstarters have dried up for the most part, or at least with rare exception, there are still very successful tabletop Kickstarters. I mean, again, Pearson Games being a really big example of that. I think every one of his games he's made in the last 5-6 years has been a Kickstarter that has succeeded.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see, I don't have any exact examples, so I'm just going to be pulling some numbers out of my rear end here. But, for example, if you look on Kickstarter, you'll see, probably 10 tabletop games. And they'll be asking for probably about, I don't know, 5-10 grand kind of thing. And they'll be getting, 50, 100, 200, 500, $1 million kind of thing.
Oh, yes.
Where you'll look on Kickstarter at the same time and you'll see 200 or 300 games on there. And you'll see them anywhere ranging from asking for $100 to asking for a few $100,000. And you'll see a lot of them down at the $0 to $10 mark.
Yeah.
And if you look at it right now, you may not even see one game that is above their Kickstarter goal, except for I know one just went on there, which is whatchamacallit?
The Dwarf one?
Yeah, Dwarf. But if you look right before that game went on there, it's probably none of them had met their funding goals. Yeah. Even the ones that were only asking for $100. Because more than likely, if they were asking for $100, they had less to show. And if they were asking for $100,000, they probably just weren't going to meet that period anyway.
Yeah. So here's an example for you. So there was a Dark Souls board game. It had a Kickstarter in... Always hell, it's hard to find the starting date for these. But I think it was 2017, 2016. So they were asking £50,000 to finish the game. They got about a little over £3.7 million for the Dark Souls tabletop game.
And you have to remember that pounds are basically, the equivalent. £1 is basically $2, roughly. Of course, that's always changing, but so that they were asking for what, 50,000?
Yeah.
So 50. That would mean they were asking for $100,000, and they got what, 3.7 million, which means they got 7.2 million or so.
And that is, according to a website, that is only the third most popular tabletop or Kickstarter board game. The one that, of course, blew everybody's mind was that Kingdom Death game. So, Kingdom Death, this was funded, they were asking $35,000. Wait, is that the right one? Oh, wait, Kingdom Death Monster 1.5. But that was another one that they were only asking for, $50,000, or I'm sorry, $35,000, and they got a little over $2 million for that one. And again, you see video game developers try to make it with even less than that, and they are just having nothing but trouble.
Yeah, and the question in chat is asking, is it because they're easier to produce? No, that's not why it's easier. It's because have you ever heard of the term red market and a blue market? These are marketing terms. What a red market is well, let's explain what a blue market is first. A blue market is where there's not a whole lot of competition. There's not a whole lot of people that are going against you, so you can Like there's not very many YouTube equivalents kind of thing. That is a blue market. Somebody can come in there, and if they have the funds to actually do it, they can make something very different, very original, and better kind of thing. But like when you have the red markets are just flooded, aka Steam, itch.io, the games market, and it's made worse by a lack of curation. Because the thing is with the blue market of like tabletop games, if the game's not good, it just disappears because nobody's going to buy it. They're not going to market it anymore, and it goes away. Thing is, when you put a game on Steam, it stays on Steam forever. So you put bad stuff on there, it's going to stay bad on there forever. And they, it depends on what you classify as saturated. There's a few hundred games on there, but there's a few hundred a day on Steam. You're comparing a few hundred in a year versus a few hundred a day on Steam. Yeah, and that's not saturated to the same level.
Yeah, I did find the big one. So they did a second Kickstarter for the 1.5 edition of Kingdom Death. They were only asking $100,000. They pulled in just under $12.4 million for that one. And I think another aspect that makes these Kickstarters work so well is that you're able, again, you're really able to see the project even at the very first stages of the Kickstarter. With a video game, like we've said, you need to have, especially in today's market, if you want a successful video game Kickstarter, your game better be almost done in terms of its concept, design, and aesthetic. Because as Shark just said, the very first thing you put out, for a video game, that's what's going to be publicized about people. So the very first screenshot that you put up about your game on your website is, the 0.005 pre-alpha, all polygon, very basic looking game. That's what people are going to associate with your title when they Google search it. And you need to have a very strong foot forward. And it's easier to have that good beginning with a tabletop game than it is a video game. Again, it sounds insane to think that they made, over 10 times what they were asking?
Something like that. And, there's also the other aspect of what it takes to make a board game tabletop / video game. So when you're making a video game, you need a game designer, you need a writer, you need a musician, you need an artist, you need a programmer, you need somebody in marketing, you need somebody who's team leading, you need community management, and there's tons of other little things that you need. And by little things, I mean entire jobs that are less known. But there's tons of things that you need, that you're going to have to wear hats for. Where in tabletop design, tabletop game, you need art when you publish it. You don't need that at the start when you're testing. Just like in a video game, you don't need that in the start. But, you definitely want at least some art or at least some concept art before you go to Kickstarter. That's for sure. Because the same rules apply with aesthetics, to board games as well as to video games. Although board games, again, are blue markets versus red markets. And blue markets a lot easier to get away with bad aesthetics. But you still want them because you don't want to sell less of your game because you didn't put the aesthetics in there. And you don't want to, have people enjoy your game less because you didn't put that aesthetics in there. And you don't want your game to have a lesser reach because you didn't put those aesthetics in there. So, like, all that is still extremely important, but it is less critical. It's, but the thing is so you got art, you got game design, you got and you got writing. So you've got 3 jobs to make a board game. It's a tabletop game, and you got like 9 to like 100 for game design, for game development. So, and this really makes me want to get back into tabletop development because I'm a writer, I'm a designer.
There you go. Well, I just ruined a Project Triad, people. I'm sorry, we just ruined it. But
actually, I'm thinking about doing a physical version of Project Triad.
Nice. Well, so, I do have to get going in like the next 20 or so minutes. So let's move on to kind of the other side of things, and that is taking a tabletop game and bringing that into a video game or to a digital version of that. Now, the screenshot that I use, of course, for this is from Blood Bowl, which the Blood Bowl series, that was not easy to say, it started out as a tabletop. We have all those lovely miniatures on the left-hand side of the thumbnail. And on the right-hand side, we have the actual digital version of it. And you have to have, or as we've said, while there are similarities between tabletop and video games or digital games, you still need to think about the overall package of a video game, I think, a little bit more than a tabletop. As we said, art and aesthetics are a very big point about this. You can have the most amazing tabletop or the most amazing gameplay, but if your game can't convey that to somebody just by looking at it, it's going to be a harder sell. And I'm thinking of stuff like Soleum Infernum by Cryptic Comet, that he made a very challenging or very interesting multiplayer strategy game, Soleum Infernum. And the problem, again, is that it's very hard to convey to somebody, just on pure mechanics, why they should give a damn about your game.
Mm-hmm. And, when you look at tabletops, it's very easy to convince them that way. Oh, because gameplay is king in tabletops.
If only it was the same way with video games.
Yeah. Sadly, it's not. Gameplay is second or third, or if it even counts in some cases, like Anthem, PUBG,
Goat Simulator,
Five
Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
We could just keep naming games, and we should get Jack back on so we have our We All Hate Fortnite podcast.
There we go. The anti-Fortnite podcast. But pro, supporting the Epic Games lawsuit.
Mm-hmm. And yet, stuff like the aesthetics of your game. It's not just about, having cards. A really good example of this would be something like Hearthstone or Gwent. That those games were designed, they are tabletop games, or they're CCGs, but they were designed around a video game, around a digital experience.
Mm-hmm.
And just having cards moving on a table, that doesn't wow anybody. So what did Blizzard do? They worked a lot on the aesthetics of Hearthstone. You have your various tiles, you have characters talk. When the card is played, you have graphical effects. And that's obviously...
You have the little things you can play with on the corners.
Yeah. And again, that kind of stuff, you're not thinking about when you're designing a tabletop game. But when you are trying to stand out in a very heavily
red market.
What was that? Red market. You need every little thing to your advantage. I mean, even with Gwent, they had to do a complete redesign of their game, not only from a presentation standpoint, but from a gameplay one, when they were trying to make it more palatable to mobile and tabletop audiences.
Mm-hmm. Hence why it is so much easier to succeed in a blue market than it is in a red market, because
Yep.
you have to, in a red market, you have to go above and beyond, or in anime terms, you got to go plus ultra.
Yeah. And like we've said, when you're taking this translation, or when you are translating anything to a digital space, there are far more considerations. Because you don't have, as Shark said, you don't have the luxury of being the only tabletop game, or the only tabletop game doing something specifically. And even then, you could be that standout tabletop game that nobody's ever played before that you bring to the PC. But if you don't supplement that with aesthetics, onboarding, animation, music, and so on, people will just think, yeah, this is just some, carbon copy crappy game. Why should I give this $10?
Well, I wouldn't say that, because people of the physical game will pick up the digital one.
Yeah, but trying to grow that fan base.
But everybody else is not going to pick it up unless the fans of the game push it onto them. Unless the word of a mouth is extreme, you're not going to sell it to anybody who you didn't sell the physical one to.
Yeah. Oh, and don't forget something else. You have to also worry about, the quality of the game as well. Any kind of bugs or issues. Because Blood Bowl was also reported having a lot of technical difficulties, and I think it had some nasty DRM as well. So that's just, shooting yourself in the foot and shooting yourself in the kneecap at the same time.
Or in the case of Ace Ventura, getting an arrow in both knees.
Yeah. And again, it's something you don't have to think about from a tabletop side. But the whole point of video games as a digital medium is that you have to have that complete package.
Yeah. And on the tabletop side, don't let us, make you think that it's easy. Because it's not. Because, if your game design is not really high, if your game design knowledge is not really high, your testing is not, really done well, and lots of it. If your onboarding skills are not good, if you have to be in the room while they're learning the game and everything, those are all huge, massive red flags to your tabletop game. So you need to be on your onboarding, game design, best skills to be able to succeed at that. So but that's the reason why it is a good place to start learning game design for video games.
Yeah.
Or tabletop games. It's great for any kind of game. Start there and work your way up, because that's what I did. Yep. And I didn't mean to do that. I didn't do that on purpose. It just happened, I didn't have any, I didn't have any sharks, telling me that, hey, maybe you should start with the tabletop design, I just wanted to do it. And that's how I got into game design. I was just a writer in games at that point, and failing at getting a job in the industry. But, I was trying nonetheless to get a job as a writer, but nobody would hire me unless I had, written books or had games that were already out that have my writing in it. It's how can I get a job? How can I get a job to with my writing in a video game if I can't get a job with a video game with my writing in it?
It's the Save the Extreme, entry level position that needs 10 years of experience.
Yeah, well, and you must be younger than 20 years old.
Exactly. And yet, again, when we look at some of these games that have made that transition, the ones that do stick out, they have to do a lot more in terms of anything they could consider aesthetics-wise on a tabletop version compared to the digital. And it is tough, because we've seen those games that when we play them, it's very basic animations, if there are any animations, and you just have to be able to look at your game, and as we said, you have to do far more work on the digital side than you do on the tabletop. And it does raise a very interesting question about just how much success would these games have, because I know St. Pearson was talking about this with having an actual digital version of Cthulhu Wars. I think it is available on Tabletop Simulator, but there's also the idea of having a standalone version of Cthulhu Wars you could play on your PC. But again, it raises that question of how much would that actually earn compared to just playing the tabletop version.
Yeah. And the other thing you got to worry about or figure in is the cost. Like if you're going to do this professionally, like you're going to have all these, cards or boards or whatever of your game printed out and everything. And you're like, oh, that can be pretty expensive. And yeah, it can be. It can also be fairly inexpensive, depending on how many you get made, kind of thing.
Oh, yes. And again, the whole discussion about physical goods and, logistics and manufacturing, that is another topic. Like, that's way too big to get into today.
Well, we can touch on it just a little bit. Mm-hmm. Just like if if you're just going to get one copy made, yeah, it'll probably cost like $20 or so to get one copy of your game that you probably would sell for $15 kind of thing. So you'd lose $5 on every copy. Not a good strategy. But if you did 100, you could probably get like down to maybe $10, and then you'd be making $5 off of each copy. But if you did like 1,000, you probably get those copies for like $3 or less. Mm-hmm. It all depends on the game because there's like so many factors that go in here. But I'm just giving you this example game of a $15 game, so it's not going to have probably that much to it. But if you go with 3,000, you may get it for like $1 a game, kind of thing. And the thing is if you're paying $1 a game for it for 3,000 copies, kind of thing, and you're selling for $15, that is a very small percentage. That is less than 10%. And you know what Steam takes? 30%. You know what Android takes? 30%. You know what Apple takes? 30%. Yep. Unless the lawsuit with Apple that Epic certainly has going on changes things. I mean, heck, you even pay like 12% on Epic platform, and we're talking about sub 10% here. But at the same time, you have to pay all that money up front, where you don't have to pay that money up front, with games. But you do have to pay that money up front for the programmer and every other role that you got to hire out. So, yeah. I mean, it very well could be cheaper. Yeah. It very easily could be cheaper. And by cheaper, I don't mean the total cost. I mean cheaper to what you pay per copy to make to what you make. I'm talking about cheaper as in ratio, not as in, the total cost. Because, of course, the total cost of a board game is probably going to be less than the total cost of a video game, because a video game is just so much more bigger. Mm-hmm. But what I'm talking about is if they both cost a set amount, if they both cost $10,000 kind of thing, the video game will be lucky to make $10,000 and break even. Mm-hmm. And it's got like a 5% chance of that probably. Yeah. And the board game has probably about a 80% chance to hit $40,000 or $50,000, Mm-hmm. So you got 5% chance of a video game breaking even, and you got 80% of a board game quadrupling the income, kind of the money. So, but but again, both of them you have to pay up front. But the pay up front for the board games is actually for the games itself, copies of the game. And the paid up front for the video game is all the people you need to pay, the programmers, the artists. Well, you technically have to pay an artist on the board game too.
but not as involved as from a video game standpoint. And again,
well, it could be almost as involved, but not technically. Like if you look at Project Triad, the the card UIs would have to be in there, the card arts would have to be in there, the stats would have to be in there, the text would have to be in there, the card backing would have to be there, but only one card. You only have to make one card back, to play mat kind of thing. Where in a video game, I'm going to have like, probably 20, 30. Yeah, ideally, but I probably won't have that many.
Yeah.
Probably more like, 10, realistically, probably what I'll end up having. And the thing is that's 9 more, And there's, I'd still have to have a card back, but I wouldn't have to have all these extra UI elements like the, intern button, the chat UI, because they just use their mouse instead of, typing into a chat box. They wouldn't, have to press a button to the end of their turn. They just say they end their turn kind of thing. They, and like there's so many little UI things that they won't have to have, and like it's less artwork. But at the same time, they're also going to have more artwork for like the packaging and everything else. But that said, for a game, you also have to have website art of multiple kinds. You have to have like 500 different capsule arts for your Steam page. You've got to have 500 other capsule art for your
Android page. Don't forget about getting
music
produced as well, because you can't have a game without music.
Yeah. I mean, for physical games, you just turn on the radio if they want a radio, and you don't even have to pay for the radio. They pay for the radio, and they put it on their station they like. So you ain't got to worry about pleasing them. They please themselves. Yeah, that's underground pudding.
There's our DMOD. There's our third DMOD, I think, for the stream. But I do have to get going in the next few minutes, so I guess let's begin to wrap things up. I guess anything specifically that we haven't touched on yet? Other than you really wanted to make a Project Triad tabletop game.
We already touched on that.
Yeah.
I mean, there is more to making tabletop games than this. I mean, you do have to worry about you have to get your game into physical stores and everything.
Ooh, yes.
So don't take this as a all-encompassing guide. This is just what it takes to make it, kind of thing. Not what it takes to, fully distribute it and get it out there kind of thing, because you're going to have to work on that.
Yeah. And to Janšvik's point about, is it worth it for board game companies like FFG to make digital versions of their board games? Again, that is a very tough question.
FFG.
Oh, I thought I said FFG. Ooh.
Yeah, what is FFG?
That I am not a tabletop guy, so I do not know. Fantasy Flight Games? Could that be it?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. I mean, it could be worth it, if they have a market, if their market is good for that kind of thing. Yeah. But you have to keep in mind that if they do this, they need to make it good. You don't want just that game,
on a computer.
Just digital.
Yeah.
You want to, you'd want to have it better. You'd have to have all the polish and effects. You'd have to have the, good multiplayer support.
I was just about to say that.
All of these different things, and and it's going to cost a lot of money. So it would only be worth it if enough of their audience actually wants that kind of thing. It is, and again, video games are red. That's in the red market. The board games are in a blue market, and blue markets are so much easier to succeed in because nobody's done everything. you can go out there and, like, it is, how often do you think we get a new genre on the PC, on video games? Like once every 10 years or so?
Mm-hmm.
With board games, I mean, you get a different genre pretty much every single board game that ever creates. Like.
Oh yes.
Food,
trains, space, demons, cooperative, competitively. There's just so much out there, and
every one of them is drastically unique. You know why they're drastically unique? Because there's not a lot of them.
Oh yeah.
And when I say not a lot of them, I mean there's still hundreds of them. But when we're talking about comparatively, between video games and board games, there's not a whole lot out there. Different.
And I also want to build off of the multiplayer side, because that's another big point. If you are building the digital version of your multiplayer or your tabletop game, you got to think about how multiplayer works. That means understanding how servers or direct IP connections, and that stuff can also kill a game. Because if you translate your tabletop game but you don't get the multiplayer right, how the hell is somebody going to play your game?
Mm-hmm. And there's just so many things that can go wrong, and so much cost in it that unless they feel that they can probably, triple or quadruple their sales by doing it, it's probably not worth it.
Yeah. And again, and this will be my final point, that again, just taking an amazing tabletop game and one-to-one pouring it to the PC or to a console, that's not going to get people excited about it. For that very reason. Because, again, for the digital side of things, you need to present more to it. And we've seen some of those games where they'll just port it one-to-one, and you look at screenshots, you look at videos, and it's just like, why do I want to play this game? Now, of course, to the fans, yes, they'll probably buy a digital version of your game because they're already hooked. But it's the same thing with stuff like with YouTube and same with video games, that if you want to grow, you need to appeal to more than just, the 10% super fans.
Mm-hmm. And if you're only, applying to those fans, then you're going to only get money from those fans. And if you're spending that much money on it, unless you've got a massive game that is world renowned, that 10%, calculates to million, to more than what it would cost to make it, it's not going to be worth it for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But
it doesn't just need to be more than it's, because thing is in board games you don't want to break even. In video games you want to break even or better, because in video games that's like a 5% chance of breaking even kind of thing. Mm-hmm. We're in board games, breaking, not necessarily breaking even, but getting, 5 times the profit out is like 80% or so. So yeah, I mean, breaking even for them is small fry stuff. Where for video games, breaking even is big time stuff.
Oh yes. But I think with that, I do have to get going, because I actually have to work on my book tonight and try to get everything over to the publisher as quickly as possible. So I think with that, we will end things. I think this was a really great chat sans the internet and YouTube related issues.
Yeah, there's lots of those.
Mm-hmm. But I will be back later tonight. We will be having another roguelike night. And as a reminder that today is going to be kind of the last day for anyone wanting the $15 book acknowledgement promo. Donation, Super Chat, or Patreon will get you that. And if you want to follow me, you'll find my information down below. As always, our Discord and Patreon. And I'm on Twitter at GWBicer.
And you can follow me on Discord and YouTube and Twitter, and all my links will be down below. And, come join the Discord at some point, hopefully soon. Probably won't be this month, but maybe next month. We'll be playing Project Triad on my Discord.
There we go.
So,
and hopefully in the future there'll be the tabletop version.
Yeah, I'm actually the tabletop version might beat the video game version because of the video game taking so long.
Yeah, there we go. As we talked about over our discussion today. But that is going to do it. So come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. And we'll be back next week at our regular time around 4:30 EDT for our next live show. And if you have a topic you would like to suggest for a future show, let us know in the comments or on our Discords.
See you.
Alright, with that said, have a great night and stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.